All right, and welcome to Marlins After Midnight, because no team keeps you awake at night like the Miami Marlins. I'm your host, Sean Villarick. I'm joined tonight by John Rodriguez and special correspondent for this series, Jeremiah Geiger. He's going to have a live account of what went on at Oakland Alameda Coliseum. We're going to dive into the A series so far, talk a little Sandy Cy Young chase, and also a little bit about Pablo, and Eddie on there. Look at the pitchers going in this series, and who do we think is going to come back in 2023? So first off, though, guys, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. It's nice to be back. I kind of took a small hiatus. Life got in the way, and honestly, to be kicking it back with you guys, it's nothing better in the world, especially after a Marlins win.
Yeah, Sean, I'm super excited. Like, these pods are always fun, and I'm really excited to talk some baseball with you guys.
Awesome. No, God, I love chatting up with you guys as well about the Fish, and two in a row. We're one away from a winning streak. That's so that is exciting. I guess before diving into it, I should just talk about this podcast. This is the first episode of this first official episode of Marlins After Midnight, and inspiration for that. For me, just growing up in South Florida, listening to some of those giants on South Florida sports radio. Hank Goldberg, Jim Mandich, Dan Levitard, at least when he's the one doing the talking on there, when he used to do most of that on the show. But also those late night guys, Ed Kaplan, Warren Cromartie. I remember coming back from Joe Robbie, Pro Players, Sun Life, whatever the hell it was called, in that particular season. And, always wanted to listen to that late night radio, hear the game broken down, what this meant for the Fish, where they were in the standings, how far out were they in the wild card, even if it was April 10th on there. I wanted to dive into that, really get into baseball. And you'd hear about the Marlins for like 5 minutes, and then you'd hear about 40 minutes about the Dolphins and the Heat, regardless of, what time of year it was. And then weirdly enough, you'd hear about 15 minutes of live reads about strip clubs in South Florida. And, that's what Channel 3 was for, but, didn't really want to hear that much of it on the radio. So this is my kind of, answer to that, something live in the late night space to just really get into all things Marlins. All right. As I keep this going in the fall, and maybe we'll occasionally mention, whatever like the big story is in other sports, but just like the Marlins got short shifted and only got a couple minutes of airtime on those shows that I listen to, like 2 minutes max on, whatever the big other sports story going on is. But all right, so that's this show. So diving into the Oakland series, and Jeremiah, I'll let you start because you actually went to the game last night. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, so I was at the game last night, and of all the for those of the listeners that didn't or have never been to the Coliseum and have just heard stories about it, I can confirm everything is true. Everything you see on social media is true. It was very empty. It felt like maybe 2,000 fans at best. Like, it was extremely empty, but the atmosphere was good. Had really good seats right next to the bullpen, and I got to see Eddie Cabrera warm up, and immediately I could just tell, like, this guy's dialed in. Like his fastball was just humming, his curve, like the break on that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this guy, he's gonna have a good night. And he just dominated start to finish. Like, the A's really never got any good contact on him. And it was really good to see, because watching, Eddie Cabrera the last few starts, I wanted to see him pitch deeper into games. He seems to run his pitch count up a little higher than you'd like to see it. And he went 8 scoreless. I think that was the first time in his career he pitched 8 complete innings. So that was really good to see. Offensively, it was a little rusty. I think LeBlanc had a homer. He had a big home run. The ball was smoked. Let me tell you, just absolute no doubter. But it was great to see the team play. It's my first Marlins game of the year. being out here in California. So to see him play, it was awesome. Really cool team.
Awesome, and no sewage, right? That's been a
no
problem in
sewage
Oakland,
that
LA
night at least.
in the past. John, any thoughts on the series?
So far, so good. Honestly, obviously it's the A's. They've been terrible this year, but for the Marlins at this point, just win as many games as you can. And at this point, it's the season's thrown out of the window, but it's good to see good performances, especially from the kids who got to play the night that Jeremiah went. Blade, Burdick, LeBlanc went yard that game. Um, what else happened? Well, you mentioned Eddie. Uh, Burdick had a very nice sliding catch earlier today. It goes to show, more or less that defense tool that the Marlins didn't have at opening day with Sanchez, Soler, and Garcia. So good stuff on the rookies, showing that they deserve to be up here, and rightfully so. Why not? Um, Tomorrow the Marlins look for the sweep. Anderson, by the way, is having himself a heck of a series so far here in Oakland. He went yard again tonight, and I believe drove in a run yesterday. Correct me if I'm wrong, with an RBI double. Yeah. So Anderson's been really really solid. As for today, let's see Pablo's line. Uh, Pablo actually pitched pretty well. Yeah, Pablo pitched really well. Um, 4 hits, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs. In fact, the A's didn't score until the ninth. So for the Marlins to be holding and pitching well, it goes to show that the real big issue there is Tanner Scott. At the end of the day, he's just not fit for it. He's not fit for the job. But overall, yeah, good series so far. Hopefully, we'll get that sweep tomorrow.
That'd be great. Yeah, I think that'd be their 5th sweep of the year, which feels weird saying, as rocky as the season has been. That would be their 5th sweep. The A's have kind of had a similar season. I was watching that ticker tonight on Valley Sports, and looks like they've caught up just as bad as many pitchers as we have, just in terms of burning through players, trying to get through the season. I'm with you guys on the outfielders. We've seen a lot of athletic plays. Players are really, really diving for the ball. Encarnacion, too, had a pretty good catch on yesterday, I believe. But he also had a pretty big whiff on one the next inning on there. So he's still, kind of finding his footing. But it's just great seeing the young outfielders be able to play on there. I know there's a lot of talk on Twitter tonight of bemoaning the fact that a bunch of the veterans are back in the lineup. Tonight, and a couple of guys hit the shelf. LeBlanc, famously has a good game. Of course, he gets the next game off because that's just how it seems to go.
It's Don Mattingly for you.
But they got the win on there. They got the win 5-3. So you love to see.
I like that you mentioned that. It's kind of disappointing, a guy like LeBlanc. You call him up, you hope to see some at bats from the guy. He performs really well, and turns out he's getting no playtime. Like, what else does LeBlanc have to prove on the field to get more playtime? And I get that the whole infield is a bit packed, but who's to say BA can't man an outfield position in the future? And with Avi Garcia being injured, this was the perfect opportunity to just shut him down for the season. Let Anderson play some games in the outfield and give LeBlanc some playing time.
It does sound like he's going to be back soon, but definitely on the infield. I mean, the feelings of the guys who are going to get hurt, like if they're pushed out of the lineup, they're not going to be here next year. A lot of them. I mean, you create this playing time, and you'd like to see that. Well, all right. Anything else on Oakland? I've been to that stadium too. It does look like it has not changed since I was there in 2011, and it doesn't look like it's changed since 2011. I'll say that. I was kidding with a buddy of mine lives out in Oakland, and I went to visit him then. We were watching the game at the same time last night, and he assured me it hasn't there. And we took turns making fun of how terrible we are right now and where we're at. He definitely misses one of the pitchers we'll talk about a little later. He misses Jesus Luzardo. He was not happy with that trade at the time, and he's not excited about tomorrow's game.
I was gonna say that, Sean. One of the fans I was talking to down at the game, we were talking about Luzardo, and he was absolutely pissed off that the A's traded him. Like, I think it's a consensus in Oakland that Luzardo is good, and he's really good. He just didn't put it together in the big leagues that one and a half seasons up in Oakland. But man, like, he's starting to put it together in Miami now, and they absolutely hate that trade.
That trade would have been a double win if they had, gotten Luzardo back for X amount of years that we have in control with him, and re-signing Marte would have just doubled on the win on that trade. But it's the
I
Marlins.
really, I really think they were trying for that in the
I
offseason.
really
Like,
did.
they
Yeah,
definitely, they just got Steve Cohen, out of his alley. I
Yeah.
think Marlins would have outspent 28 teams, honestly, on that contract. But Uncle Steve dropped the bag, and that was that. Well, all right. Well, I guess we'll move off of Oakland real quick. Just like I said, given that minute to other stuff going on. Only other, I think, major notable sports stories going on in South Florida. We could make a big fuss of the fact that the Dolphins played a preseason game, but the preseason is pretty pointless. The only thing I thought was interesting in that was that apparently, if you just read the ESPN box score, and that's all you should ever do with an NFL preseason game, someone named Z White scored a touchdown for the Dolphins, and another roster turner for the Raiders with the same name scored a touchdown for them. So I just thought it was a big typo. But the big story, of course, is that Udonis Haslam's running it back for a 20th year with the Miami Heat. If you guys got anything to say about UD, I'll give you a minute, 2 minutes if you can make it about baseball too.
I'll throw one actually. I'll actually make a tie with UD with the baseball.
Okay.
With the Marlins rather. So with UD, I've been watching NBA basketball, especially the Heat, since 2007, as well as the Marlins when I was just a little boy, and UD was there. He's the captain of that team. He has stayed. He has stayed loyal. He's true to the 305, and that's the type of player that you love. To tie it into baseball, I was always thinking of this kind of thing that the Marlins should experiment. I don't think Miguel Rojas is fit to start for shortstop. If Miguel Rojas is truly the captain, throw him into the bench, have him mentor, and have him show players compassion, have him show pride for the team. The way we've seen Miggy over the years. If he could be that example to the players, especially the young rookies who we just called up, give LeBlanc some playing time, throw him out there. If he's feeling down, hey, have Miggy go up to him, go talk to him. We've seen the Miggy mound visits that he does by himself. He goes up to the pitcher and he tells him, "Hey, come on, you got to get some outs, you got to get some strikes," and they execute. Like if we could have Miggy become that type of person, that UD type of player that the Marlins could have, regardless if he plays well or bad, you just throw him into the clubhouse, that experience, that veteran presence. Maybe this could turn around some player performances because you need some guidance, especially when you're fresh off the minor leagues into the major leagues. It's quite an adjustment, and not everybody gets to adjust to the major leagues. So, for a clubhouse standpoint, I think UD sets that example with
Okay.
his playoff experiences and everything that he's witnessed throughout his career. Miggy could do the same. And I know he's only been to one playoff, maybe two with the Dodgers, whenever that was. But hey, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for however long, and he can help players out.
That last part is that's my only thing with the Miggy UD talk is that so he's been to one playoff series, and otherwise, UD he's got three championship rings. Miggy's been part of 3 teams that massively underwhelmed and one and one playoff chase. Plus, UD gets to be hidden on the inactive roster. I mean, they'd have to make Miggy the locker room attendant.
Right.
Give a speech before every game. But I definitely think he's got value as that veteran presence. I do want to see him back next year, but I do hope that at least by July there's another starting shortstop.
100%.
But all right, so moving on. There to And now, so after we've talked a bunch about the California team we were able to beat up on, we probably got to acknowledge what happened over the weekend. Sandy Alcantara ran into a buzzsaw of the Dodgers lineup over the weekend. There got pummeled for one of easily his worst start of the season. 10 hits, 6 earned runs. On their pretty ugly line, no two ways about it. And as the Marlins finishing off that sweep, by the Dodgers, they couldn't get out of our own way over the weekend. So that kind of slowed down the momentum a bit on what's been a kind of a runaway, freight train of a Cy Young chase for Sandy. He's was at the top of every leaderboard on there, and now there's that's less the case. That can change if one start, but there just it worries me anyway, and this is me channeling years of trauma from Dontrelle Willis in 2005, Kevin Brown in '96, and I want to open that up to you guys too, and get into that this idea that the Marlins can't always have nice things, it seems, but even just by Sandy stats alone, as awesome as they are, I went back through a bunch of box scores of just previous Cy Young winners. Like even the night before, getting ready for the Sandy start, and saw that I think only 3 of the last 10 Cy Young winners even had as many. We'll just go with lousy starts, and that's a very official stat. For our purposes, lousy start means 4 earned runs or more allowed in the appearance. Only 3 Cy Young winners have had as many as Sandy's had to this point on there, and I think it was Scherzer did it once, and R.A. Dickey in 2012 had more. He had like 8 really crappy starts, and then was lights out for the other 20 something. So that's got me a little worried with Sandy's schedule coming up. We've got that same Dodgers team again. Then I think he lines up for the Mets and the Braves after it before he gets a couple national starts, it looks like, to maybe close out the season there. So do you think that, I guess the simplest way to put it, do you think he could survive? Can he survive another rough Dodgers start? He's playing the same Dodgers team this Saturday. If they light him up again, what does that do to his chance?
See, for the Cy Young, like, here's the thing. If you go back and you watch the highlights, you watch Sandy pitching, and he'll tell you in the post-game interview, his stuff was there. He still had the 99-mile-an-hour fastball, the changeup. And you see what Dave Roberts said and the approach the Dodgers took. And you have to remember the Dodgers are the best team in baseball, far and above the best team in baseball. That was, heavyweight versus heavyweight. And that day, the Dodgers just put good swings on the ball. Whatever. I remember the Bellinger home run that Alcantara gave up. It was a 99-mile-an-hour on the paint inside fastball, and Bellinger just turned on it. Like, that's just good hitting. And I think he knows that. I think Sandy knows that there's not a mechanical flaw or something wrong with his stuff right now. But here's the thing. Can he afford more Dodger Blues, to answer the question? To be honest, I don't think he can. I think if he goes out and has another really bad start, like you said, you look at the Mets coming up. The Mets have hit Sandy pretty well this year in a couple starts. He's got the red hot Braves. Like, this is where I believe, in my opinion, you have the 3, arguably the 3 best teams or hottest teams in the National League, and the Cy Young is the best pitcher. Well, okay, if you're the best pitcher, you got to go out and you got to shove. You got to go out and, and be lights out against the best. So if Sandy puts together 3 mediocre starts, there's a guy in Milwaukee, Corbin Burns, that's sitting right there waiting to take it from him.
Also got lit up by the Dodgers tonight.
Yeah. See, that's another example. Like, the Dodgers, man, they're just so good.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know.
They're
going to
be
tough.
They're horrifying.
and the thing is the Marlins, they don't have the benefit of the doubt. They don't, like Kershaw in his years when he won the Cy Young, or Lincecum, as good as years they had, they were playing for nationally known teams. The Giants and Dodgers, there's fans of those teams, not only just in California but across the entire country. In
In the world.
Florida, in the world, like Sandy isn't a real household name until this year. Like last year, if you told the average fan about Sandy, he's like, "Who?" Like he didn't know who Sandy was. And that's why I think Sandy has to be at the top of his game. And it's not fair to him because he does deserve it. But I think that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, definitely. John, what you
And
got? Can he afford to stumble this weekend? No.
and Jeremiah said it. You know, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And you could say he already beat one, being the Padres. He had a good outing on that one. He unfortunately lost that big one to the Dodgers. Maybe it's some sort of split. Maybe he just sucks at Dodger Stadium. Maybe because the same thing happened last year. The same exact thing happened last year, and I think he gave up one or two more runs last year. So maybe it's just a thing where he just doesn't perform well at Dodger Stadium. Maybe, um,
Unless it's
like
the
you
All
said.
Star game.
So he's got the Dodgers, you said, the Braves, and the Mets. You
There's,
have mentioned.
yeah, there should be his next 3 starts. This is me looking at a schedule and counting to 5 3 times. But
Yeah, so given that, I mean, he's performed better with the Braves than he has with the Mets. Mets has been on and off, but with the Braves, he has done a complete game with against the Braves, and so I
and he's
guess
had some
there's
great ones
that.
against the Mets. It's 3 stack lineups in a
Right.
row. But it's
Right.
So given that, I mean, all he really has to do is um make up that start against the Dodgers at home. Maybe, I mean, if you've seen his splits at home, they're insane. Those numbers are crazy. The whip is, I think, under 90. It's around 87 at home. So he's absolutely cracked at home. So if he could pitch that well with that Dodger lineup at home, hey, he made up for it. And I still think he's going to end up on top with the Cy Young award. I will be disappointed if he doesn't, but baseball changes and maybe he just falls off.
I agree with the racing to start. I think that's definitely the way he's got to approach it. Another thing when I was looking through these box scores, another thing I wanted to see was how common was it for a Cy Young winner, to struggle against the same thing twice. Any pitcher can have a bad day. These guys are human. It's a long, grueling season. They're all
Right.
professionals. All those cliches that are cliches because they're true. You can have a bad outing, but how common was it for the same team, to 3 times, kick one of these guys' teeth in? And that only one I found, again, that I just went back 10 years for this one, was 2012. Was R.A. Dickey back then. I think he had a couple. I think the Braves just really did a number on him. 2 or 3 times. But that was it. That's the only one. Every other time you've seen, and this makes sense because these are Cy Young winners we're talking about. The good pitchers make adjustments, to it. They figure out, what didn't happen the first time around, and they could, do the right thing the second time out. Even if you go into the numbers, traditionally, second time facing that favors the batter, right? The second time facing a pitcher, especially close together. If you're a Cy Young winner or at that level, you usually make those adjustments. So I really want to see, Sandy make those adjustments. Definitely all his numbers over the course of the year. We've been beating the drum for him, since April. Really, to win the Cy Young, he should win the Cy Young. But Jeremiah kind of touched on it on here. The other thing that gives me concern, much more concern than the fact that Sandy had a bad start this Sunday and may even have 2 in a row, because really, who cares? Again, going into Sunday, he was leading in ERA, WAR, innings pitched, complete game, shutouts, ERA plus. He slid down a couple of those, but still
The whole 9 yards.
Still crushing it in all those categories. Is the fact that over the last 30 years, this one back on, only 3 Cy Young winners in the last 30 years have played for a losing team. There, not even talking about that. It's not even about going to the World Series or being a championship team. Only 3 of the last 30 Cy Young winners have played for a losing team.
Is this in the National League or just in general?
National League. National League
Okay.
Central. Thank you. With but now it's happened as recently as 2018. With DeGrom, so
Okay.
there is that, and so you're seeing baseball thinking kind of evolve on this, and if you think back to some of the previous attempts by the Marlins who were up for this award, right? Like Kevin Brown in 1996 had a 7.9 WAR, 1.89 ERA
Wow.
at the end of the full season. WHIP was 0.9, adjusted ERA. He led baseball. He led baseball in shutouts on there, but John Smoltz had 24 wins. And John Smoltz won the award because in 1996, everyone on their mound there was voting for the Baseball Writers Association of America in the mid-90s, just saw the wins and kind of went with that. Certainly Smoltz had a great season that year, not taking anything away from that Braves rotation, but Brown was better. Brown was demonstrably better. And if he has those 2 seasons are produced today, it's a unanimous vote. That he wins the award. But Brown played for a losing team, and the Braves in '96 were the Braves every year in the '90s. They were great. They won a bunch of games. They were going to the
team of the
playoffs.
'90s.
Dontrelle Willis in 2005. A little more evolved thinking about baseball, but it was a winning Marlins team, but not a playoff Marlins team, not a Midwestern-based Marlins team. And Chris Carpenter, gets it for the Cardinals because he's a St. Louis Cardinal. Right there. So I'm just wondering where you guys are at that. Do you think that, I guess my concern is that are the voters, do they get any excuse to
My
not vote
level
for
of
the pitcher on the
concern.
losing team? Are they going to pick the guy on the team that's going to the playoffs? Are they going to pick one of those shiny Dodgers just because they're the Dodgers?
That's my level of concern there because you mentioned DeGrom won in 2018. 2 things, DeGrom and Mets. This one is Alcantara and Marlins. So if MLB's looking in the whole marketing scheme, they're gonna lean with Mets over Marlins. So that's my only level of concern because I'm not sure where they would kind of stand there when they pair all the pitchers. Like you got Max Fried, Alcantara, Burns, and who would they throw for the Dodgers?
You got to
Gonsolin. There
mention
you go.
Gonsolin. He's at the top of some of those leaderboards right now. He's not as good as Alcantara, but
So that's my level of concern because Alcantara could right now pitch 230 innings by the end of the season, and Gonsolin's only going to be at a fraction of them. But they might go with Gonsolin because Gonsolin's going to the World Series. So that's where I'm like, man, I don't know.
So for me, I watched this documentary a couple weeks back on YouTube from SB Nation, and it was about Dave Stieb, the pitcher for the Blue Jays, back in the 80s. And he was undoubtedly, based on statistics, the best pitcher of the 1980s. He, innings, strikeouts, well, not so much strikeouts, but ERA, his WAR, it was really focused on WAR. And he didn't come close to sniffing a Cy Young Award because baseball writers are human. It's not cut and dry numbers. It's not a numbers game. Who's the best? Even though Dave Stieb was the best pitcher, he didn't lead the league in wins. And that wasn't his fault. Wins are a very overrated stat. But, like John said, with the Mets and DeGrom in that particular year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had the best ERA since Bob Gibson back in the 60s or something in the National League. It was lights out. He forced the writers to give him the award. He was that dominant. Now with Sandy, if he slips up, because the Marlins are close to 20 games out of 500, he can't afford to have another bad start or two, because if the writers are looking at this and they start seeing teams or players on competitive teams who have similar numbers, not as good as Sandy, but let's say Corbin Burns with the Brewers, and the Brewers go on a playoff chase because they're out of it right now. But imagine if he pitches 3-4 dominant starts, and the Brewers get into the playoffs, and it's recency bias. Okay, who's thinking about the last place or second to last place Marlins, 30 games under 500, when you have the ace of the Brewers who just led his team into the playoffs? That's something where I get nervous because no one's going to be watching the Marlins in September. Unless you're a Marlins fan, there's no need to. They're going to be
Yeah.
watching the teams that are competing, and I think that's the only thing that keeps Sandy from winning this award is that recency bias and the competitive teams.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It's starting to worry me again. I was really crushed by those two previous decisions. Going back decades on those. So I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that we get that erasure start that we want in this Dodgers series, and that just puts him right on track. Because if he just keeps this runaway season he's been ongoing, then there's no argument. If he just goes back to normal Sandy for the rest of the season, or at least 4 of the 5 remaining starts,
No argument at all.
Then they can't take it away from him. But if he makes it close, then it's
up for grabs at that point.
Mixed sports metaphors. If this goes to the cards, I don't think we're going to like the decision here in South Florida. But, all right, and so other pitchers, as awesome as Sandy is, we've been treated to some really good pitching in this Oakland series so far, and one great start in the Dodgers series as well. Jesus Luzardo had possibly his best start of the season to start off that series, and then easily, as we mentioned him earlier, Eddie Cabrera on Monday night. Jeremiah got to see the best start of his major league career.
Oh yeah,
in person, and Pablo back to form tonight. 6 innings pitched. 6 innings pitched, 5 Ks. But yeah, 6 innings
5
pitched, 5
Ks.
Ks for Pablo. No runs for either starter last couple of nights. And I'm kind of wondering, as we know that there are myriad problems with this Marlins roster construction, all on the offensive side that need to be fixed. And people keep treating out this dream rotation we're going to have next year of Sandy and Pablo and Eddie and Jesus and a mix of like 4 different guys in the 5th spot. Could be Trevor, could be Braxton. Maybe we just say screw it and promote Yuri. Right away. But that's really not going to happen, right? Because we need to fix this offense somehow. And unfortunately, we mentioned Steve Cohen earlier. He's not the owner. We're not buying all the offensive answers to this team. So they're going to have to trade some pitching. So I'm wondering, for basically the 3 pitchers going in this series, do you think that Pablo Lopez, Edward Cabrera, and Jesus Luzardo, do you think they're all pitching for the Marlins in 2023? We'll make that the first. Question.
I'll let Jeremiah tackle this one first.
Okay.
Okay, no, I love this question. Man, so I think Eddie stays. I think Luzardo stays. I think that if there's a guy to be traded from the major league roster, it's Pablo. I think he's going to be dealt in the offseason, probably around the winter meetings. But I think what will be a more likely scenario if the Marlins are serious about contending next season is that you will get a decent return on Pablo. You will. But you look at his starts at home, he pitches a lot better at Marlins Park or Lone Depot Park now. And with only 2 years of control left, other teams are going to be more willing to look at a guy like Yuri Perez or Jake Eder in the Marlins system. I think Yuri Perez is going to be one of those names that you're going to be hear floated around in the offseason for a big time trade, because he's a top 10 prospect now in all of baseball, the top pitching prospect according to Baseball America and Pipeline. He's got all the stuff. So I think from those 3, I think Pablo's more likely to be traded than all of them. But I think Yuri Perez is going to be the guy that teams will be calling and willing to give up a big haul for, because Perez is that guy, man. He's got all that stuff, and I don't want to see him get traded but you have to trade him, or you have to trade Pablo, or Eddie and Luzardo. I just don't think the Marlins want to give up on Cabrera, because Cabrera's could be really, really special, like Sandy type special. If he fixes his command, because that's really, he doesn't get hit hard. And Luzardo, if he puts it all together mentally, um, both of those guys have top of the rotation stuff. I think Miami wants to hang on to them more than they would Pablo.
Okay, John.
I like that take. Interesting, because I think with Yuri you're getting like a firepower type slugger in return. So I actually never thought of that, because I thought Yuri would probably be a a lock for the Marlins. Try to keep him up there. But I like the desperation, because you know it's going to be year 6, and they still haven't found any much to any advancements. I mean, they finally, what, they're going to crack 70 wins this year. Should be looking for 80, maybe 80 plus. So um, for the main question, Sean, I think Pablo won't be in a Marlins uniform by opening day 2023, and if he is,
Okay.
surprised I will be. um, but man, he's just a great guy. Like, he's a great person on and off the field. He pitches so well. He does his job. Um, but yeah, I really think that teams will be calling for Pablo, and I think the Marlins could track a pretty nice return if they execute it, well, because some of the moves the front office has made really hasn't looked all that good. But yeah, I think it's Pablo.
I'd agree. I mean, I'm we all know like there was a lot of disappointment amongst the fan base when Pablo wasn't moved at the
Hmm.
trade deadline on there. And I thought that was, yeah, I was never really on board with that.
Me
I was
neither.
happy they kept him just because
Yeah.
I wanted him moved for an MLB ready bat. I didn't want him moved for a prospect.
Right.
Even like I wanted someone who'd been doing an All Star game, traded with their for their offense. And I didn't see them getting that from anyone because why are you trading that if you're trying to make the playoffs yourself? But you do that in November. After you
Hmm.
get kicked
Right.
out of the playoffs or you don't make the playoffs because you don't have a Pablo, then that's you can get that done. So I think it would be Lopez, but yeah, this is make or break time, for the rebuild. I'd love to see that kind of all chips to the table mentality that would be moving Yuri Perez, or Eater if he's right by then, moving those top tier prospects, for a piece. It's going to be whatever gets. It's going to be whatever gets the best return. They're going to have to move one of those pitchers,
Yeah.
on there, if not two. On there, they've
And
got the depth, to make that work. I hope it's just one. I'd really love to see them roll with just 4 studs on there that stay healthy with some more support behind them. So I'd agree Pablo's the most likely to go, but it's going to be really interesting to see just how all three of them, Pablo, Eddie, and Jesus, close out the season and how that leads into the winter meetings.
really quick, Sean, I was gonna say, selfishly, I want Pablo to stay because he's one of my favorite Marlins. Uh, Ever since he really came up, he's been one of my favorite Marlins. Absolute, John said it, absolute great dude on and off the field. But I think at this point in the rebuild, I don't think you can miss with whatever trade. I don't think they can take another Christian Yelich type miss on this
Right.
trade. I think
No.
if they trade Pablo, they need to be sure they're getting a star back, like a major league ready, proven hitter. So that's why I think they might lean towards trading Yuri, because whatever pitcher they deal away, the return has to hit. Otherwise, I'm going to say it, I think the rebuild is a failure at that point.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
It's really
that
treading.
might be the time to throw dirt on it.
It's really treading towards that direction. It really is. Like, they have been able to produce pitchers, but in a rebuild, you're supposed to produce both. Realistically, you're supposed to produce pitchers and hitters. There's supposed to be a balance. In fact, I like that they've developed pitchers quite well, And I thought their mentality was produce pitchers. Once you have a surplus and you know who's going to be on your starting five, those that are still back down there, you could trade them for bats. I thought that was what their mentality was going to be about, but I'm not sure what they're really doing. Like many people say, they don't really understand the direction of in which the team is going and what their next move is going to be because there's not really a system intact. There hasn't been a stable front office this whole rebuild. It's been Jeter, Kim, Mike Hill. It's been all over the place. Like everybody has a different vision, a different direction. Nobody knows what the pattern is going to be next.
Really good
Makes
point.
sense to me. So this was, I will say, I think this was maybe the first year we had that massive surplus of the pitchers to move, and
Right.
I thought we'd move more of them, this off season, and along with maybe a first baseman or two. But that's getting into a thing for something for another day. But this off season definitely. I mean, they've got that surplus, and there's so much pitching in this organization. I think I mentioned this on your pod last week, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
We could absorb losing Max Meyer
Listen to that.
with this. Like, all right, that's terrible. And we're not going to have Max Meyer for a while, but we still have Edward Cabrera and Jesus Luzardo and Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez and yada. They can take that loss.
Just talking like during this pod so far. I hadn't thought about Max Meyer this entire pod. That's how deep our pitching is because I'm focused on Yuri and Pablo, Luzardo, Eddie. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You're right, Sean. We have Max Meyer who, unfortunately he's hurt, but when he's healthy, he's got the best
moves right in to replace
in the
whoever we deal for that.
Right.
And hold on. Coming next year, Jake Eater. Get ready for him.
There we go.
Eater and of course Sixto, right?
Hey, if he can throw past 70 feet, maybe.
Yeah, we're all waiting for that 70 feet day.
That day's going to be historic whenever he hits a major league mound again.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, I think that's probably going to be about it for us. Tonight. So for Marlins After Midnight, I'm Sean Miller. You can catch my stuff at either Call to the Pen, great site, on there, or follow me on Twitter at Miami Sports Minute. You guys, anything you want to promote?
I'll go first. I'm bringing back the Marlins Off Day Pods on my YouTube channel. I'll be with Eli Sussman on Thursday, and I'm hoping to get back to the action, and I will be making a return to my Instagram account on All Marlins. Make sure to go follow that. We are, I believe, at right about 2,050 followers, right around there. So if you want to jump aboard and join the fish tank, go onto my Discord server as well. We're inviting all Marlins fans of anywhere in the world, wherever you may be. Let's try to unite the fan base and throw me your takes. Let's see what you got.
Awesome.
Yeah, guys, follow my Twitter, Jeremiah Geiger 2. Check out the podcast, Marlins 9. A lot of great guests I've had Sean, I've had John on there, Eli. So it's been fun. I'm gonna have to take a break from it over the next 3 weeks or so because I'm going off to airborne school, go jump out of planes. But it's been a blast. So check it out. Keep following this pod. Check out John's. It's a good ride. Let's go fish.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go fish. I was gonna close this podcast with sleep with the fishes, but I've been told that means something else. So let's go fish, and we'll catch you next time on Marlins After Midnight.
Late night with the fish.
With the fish.